Good evening. As the brilliant Andrew Neil points out in the Mail newspaper this weekend, in 1997, Tony Blair's honeymoon period lasted 4 years. Well, I don't think Sir Keir Starmer has had 4 minutes after entering number 10 with negative poll ratings and a paltry 34% of the popular vote, with 3 million fewer people supporting Starmer than his predecessor Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. And as they prepare for their annual conference, which should be a huge cause for celebration, their first since winning power, it's more likely to be a wake, given that this new government is mired in sleaze allegations, anger around 10 million pensioners stripped of the winter fuel allowance, and worries that their high tax, high regulation policies, alongside bumper public sector pay rises, will tank an economy that under the Tories sat at the very top of the G7 for economic growth. This has to be the worst start for any administration in living memory. With fury even in Labour circles that the Prime Minister has received over £100,000 worth of freebies since 2019, the largest amount claimed by any MP in the House of Commons by a distance, closely followed by his colleague in the Cabinet, Lucy Powell. So the socialists quite like money after all, don't they? Meanwhile, the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves took time out of her busy schedule, tearing down portraits of her male predecessors at number 11 and stripping out urinals, to receive £7,500 for fancy new clothes from a Labour donor, Lord Wahid Ali, with both Reeves and Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, who received a similar amount, declaring the posh frocks as office support. Now, the less charitable would call that cooking the books. I would never make such an accusation. A Labour election candidate, Liam Conlon, also received £10,000 from Lord Wahid Ali to support his successful campaign in July of this year. Now, this is the same Liam Conlon who just happens to be the son of Labour's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, who was instrumental in the granting of an Access All Areas pass to number 10 for Lord Ali. Now, that's probably just a crazy coincidence, although Ali has since been stripped of the pass. I can't imagine why. Foreign Secretary David Lammy took a £10,000 donation from a Saudi-supporting PR executive, even though his new job involves taking a neutral position on the world stage, particularly in the hot mess that is the Middle East. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, who backs a policy of taxing elite education, how that helps the country is anyone's guess, has admitted to receiving £14,000 from, you guessed it, Labour donor Lord Wahid Ali. And that money helped pay for events to mark her 40th birthday. Isn't that nice? We know about the Taylor Swift concerts, the £5,000 for Mrs. Starmer's dresses, and the £20,000 for Keir Starmer's accommodation, his suits and his spectacles. But this short-sighted administration has demonstrated further myopia, with revelations that the aforementioned Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner didn't declare that a friend joined her on a luxury Christmas trip to New York City at the aforementioned Labour donor's $2.5 million apartment in Manhattan. And don't get me started on the ongoing confusion about just where Angela Rayner was living 15 years ago, when she seemed to have more addresses than a Colombian gangster. Now, politicians are notorious for enjoying a freebie, and Boris Johnson received a small fortune for posh wallpaper, and Partygate was a disgrace, which ultimately sank the Tories. But the reason this is a particular political problem for the Prime Minister is that he spent 4 years as leader of the opposition railing against Tory sleaze, promising to clean up politics and help the nation. Instead, he looks to have been helping himself. And many of these freebies are politically compromising, such as the free private box at the Arsenal football stadium, worth £8,000 a game, and at Spurs last weekend, all whilst drawing up plans to regulate the football industry. With their polling through the floor, the public has fallen out of love with this new government before it's even started. Strap yourselves in for a long and painful 5 years. As Labour embark on their first party conference in power, it's far from a party atmosphere. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. First up, tonight's top pundits. I'm delighted to have journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, maverick former Tory MP, who can now be honest with all of us, Michael Fabricant.
And I will.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Ethnographer, broadcaster and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Great to see all three of you. Linda, a hot mess for this new Labour government.
I can't believe it. I've been permanently deprived of the power of speech for most of this week. Let me just give you one example. I watched on TV and archive footage of Angela Rayner walking across the lobby in a pair of trousers, which is £25 more than the winter fuel allowance for an old age pensioner.
Really? His trousers worth over £300?
£325 to be precise.
Extraordinary. Michael, you must be gloating.
I am gloating a little, I must confess. I mean, it's incredible when you had Labour saying during the election they were going to take care of pensioners and the vulnerable. And they're doing quite the opposite. And, you know, when Labour was elected, and you said quite rightly, it was 34% of the popular vote, but so many people stayed at home and didn't vote. And in fact, out of the total number of people who could vote, Labour won with just 21% of people who could vote voting for Labour. And Starmer wasn't popular then. He was minus 16, but he's now minus 45 on the approval rating, but he's not alone. Got the figures here. Rachel Reeves is minus 36 and Angie Rayner minus 23. I'm surprised it's only minus 23.
That's worse than Antarctica. I mean, Michael, the issue is, though, that no rules, by and large, were broken. And when it comes to sleaze, your lot were far worse.
In many ways, we were. But you know what? This is the point that Keir Starmer makes, and this is why Keir Starmer just doesn't get it. He says no rules were broken. But what he doesn't understand is what he did break was the people's trust. Those people, those few people, that 21% who actually did vote for him.
I'm just going to say, because I'm sure that Lisa is bursting to jump in here. But it's not just about we've stayed within the rules. We've
heard prominent broadcasters with that excuse.
I know, honestly.
They also
the law wasn't broken.
It's the spirit of the rules that they talk about.
It's so annoying because what really matters is perception, the perception of the public here. That's what actually matters. And the fact is, just because you massage things around a little bit and you manage to push them in behind one rule or another, that makes no difference to the public. The public are clearly outraged at this, and it has traction. This has legs.
However, Lisa, you could argue it's a storm in a teacup, a Westminster Village story. The freebies don't affect my viewers and listeners' ability to heat their homes this winter, to put petrol in the car, to pay their bills, keep a roof over their heads.
No.
Is it trivial?
It's both. It is trivial, in the fact that, and it's also decadent. So it's two things. It's sort of, is it a Westminster story? Yes, it is. Are the Daily Mail and the Telegraph loving this? Yes, they are. But also it screams of decadence and sort of Marie Antoinette-ness.
Oh, that's what I thought, Marie Antoinette. Yeah,
exactly. And double standards, that's the problem, isn't it?
Double standards, but I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised at all. I didn't think, I actually thought this is what politicians do, whether they are Labour, whether they are Labour or Tory or whatever, they are in a system that is corrupting. I'm not disappointed, I'm not shocked. I just think that, we're at the sort of our democracy is part
but it's not just the Telegraph. But it's not just the Telegraph and the Daily Mail, it's the Daily Mirror. It's the Guardian.
And of course it's actually figures within the Labour Party who are absolutely furious, which takes me to the next story, because developing tonight, a top Labour MP launches a vicious attack on Sir Keir Starmer. So is our new governing party descending into civil war? And can Sir Keir survive this extraordinary political storm? I'll be asking a top